Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, where we interview remarkable people and share strategies for mastering money and living a meaningful life. With your host, Grant Sabatier, creator of Millennial Money and author of Financial Freedom, a proven path to all the money you will ever need.
Welcome to this episode of the Financial Freedom Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Simplify by Quicken, a new budgeting, investing, and overall personal finance dashboard that's changing the game. I've been super impressed with it as a comprehensive dashboard for your financial life. Try it for 30 days free at simplifymoney.com. That's SIMPLIFImoney.com. 100% of the proceeds of this episode will be donated to the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, foodbankofhudsonvalley.org. This is a special edition of the Financial Freedom Podcast because in this episode, I'm actually going to be flying solo, and I have a number of new guest episodes that are coming up shortly, but I wanted to take this time now. It's the end of March in 2020, and I'm about 150 miles north of the northern border of New York City, out in the country, living in an old barn. And my wife and I made the decision about 3 weeks ago, so pretty early at the end of February, that we were going to head for the country and get out of New York City, which has become the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in the United States and potentially, hopefully not, in the world. There are so many cases that are popping up every day there. We decided to leave for a number of reasons so early. The first was that my wife has an autoimmune condition that makes her more susceptible to a virus like this, and we didn't want to take any chances with that. So once I heard that the first cases were in the U.S., we jetted for the country, and thankfully we have the resources to be able to do this. We're renting a home right now in the United States and worldwide. Home rentals are down, I think I read a figure over 80%, and so we're actually able to get a good deal on a rental last minute on a home, and so it wasn't as cost prohibitive as I thought it could be. And now we're hunkered down and quarantining, even though I've had to drive into New York City once to get some supplies from our apartment and some medications. We've largely just been hiking during the day, reading, catching up on email, connecting with friends over Skype and Zoom, and just trying to make sense of this increasingly uncertain time. And so I wanted to just share that my heart is with all of you, no matter where you're listening to this or when you're listening to this around the world. It's been a scary time for me, and I know for so many of you. I was really struck, unfortunately, when I drove down to New York City about 4 days ago, just how many people I saw on the path near the West Side Highway in Manhattan and out in parks. It was a beautiful day last Friday in New York, and so, of course, people naturally want to be outside, but I'd actually never seen so many people outside in New York. And at a time when this is spreading, I don't know whether people aren't taking it seriously or whether just the only way that they can react to this information is to push against it and get outside. I don't know, but I was really struck by just how many people were outside during this time. And so if you're listening to this and you're sheltering in place or you're thinking about sheltering in place, please do for the sake of everyone else. I have a couple of friends and acquaintances that currently have the coronavirus, and they're struggling with it to varying degrees, and I think we haven't even reached what will likely be the arc of this virus. And it's an unprecedented time, really, in terms of finances and life and, of course, the economy. And there's so many emotions about what's happening and what will happen. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to spend this time, what it means for me. And I really encourage you or want to be supportive of you during this time, and really encourage you to think and use this. If there's any silver lining, the way that I'm using this time is to reflect on the life that I was living before this happened and think about more intentionally the life I want to live after this happens. So, as I've written about in Financial Freedom and on Millennial Money, I've struggled with burnout really for the past 10 years of my life, just working a ton, not sleeping much, not taking great care of my health at times. And so I wanted to use this time when I really can't go anywhere besides outside to hike, kind of do a reset on my life and eat more intentionally and more mindfully, work out as much as I can, meditate, and really think about what I want my life to look like after this, even though, of course, none of us know what the fallout of this virus is ultimately going to be. We do have an opportunity to perhaps do some of that work that we've been putting off, whether it's having that conversation that we've been putting off with a friend or a partner or a member of our family, or likely with ourselves in some ways. So I've talked about this, how it's so much easier in life to always chase the next thing, whether it's the job promotion or $100,000 or even pursuing financial independence. It's always easier to go after some goal, and in some cases blindly, and not sit and deal with the emotions that we're feeling. And I used to really struggle, and still to some extent do, with really overthinking things. And so I'll beat myself up when I make a bad financial decision. Even 3 weeks ago, I sold a large portion of the Amazon stock that I had in my portfolio because I was overweighted, overexposed with that particular stock, and felt like I needed to be more diversified. But I was doing this amidst the market going up and down. And in hindsight, while I did sell the Amazon stock and diversify into a total stock market index fund, hopefully got some value there, I really was beating myself up a little bit over making that decision just a couple of days ago when I saw, Amazon stock has actually continued to go up. I've spent now 10 years building a relationship with money, and I'm human just like anyone else, and felt some regret and guilt about that decision, even when my own advice, the advice that I've given to others and taken myself, says that I need to stay in the market, invest for the long term, not make any irrational decisions, and stick to my plan. I, for some reason, felt compelled emotionally to make that decision. And so I'm struggling with the market ups and downs, just like a lot of people. I do feel grateful that I had over 2 years of my living expenses in cash, so I haven't had to take out any money from my investments to ultimately live on. But you don't know kind of what you're made of until the uncertainty presents itself in front of you. And over the past year, as I've reflected on my life, I've gotten more comfortable with not knowing, and realized that not knowing, in a lot of cases, what's going to happen is a really beautiful thing, and something that I've worked hard to come to peace with, and I'm still working on. The only certainty in life is change, and you don't know, even when you try to control all of the variables with your health. You eat well, you exercise, with your finances, you save money, you invest. You really don't know what the future holds. And a lot of life is about risk mitigation. It's about controlling what you can control, understanding what you can control, and then letting go of all those things that you can't. And that's, in my own life, I think in other people's lives, that's often where a lot of the friction in life arises, is that we're constantly trying to hold on to this idea that we can control more of the variables than we realize. Or even when we make what we believe to be all the best decisions and something still doesn't work out for us, we take that burden on ourselves, and we feel bad about it, and we feel responsible for it, and we look back at all the decisions we made and we second guess them. But so much of investing money, so much of life, often good is good enough. We have to continue moving forward. It's kind of like, are we flowing with the water, is how I like to think about it. because so much in front of us, we can't take in all the information that we see. In a lot of cases, our brain functions as this like really, really well calibrated filter where there's just infinite amounts of information and colors and light that are always in front of us. They're always available to us. It's like you can take a moment and focus on that leaf that's in front of you or the way your clothes are stitched. You can really focus in on those minute details if you're intentional about it. But oftentimes, as we're going through life, we're just trying to process all of the information in front of us, and we're doing it automatically. It can be extremely overwhelming when that normal day-to-day routine that we have, or that normal expectation, or that normal experience gets fragmented, or we get pulled away from it. And so it's been really jarring for me. It really was for the first 10 days or so, to just be outside of my apartment and to be somewhere new and to be reading all this information in the media about what was happening. There was just so much information and so much new information for my brain to process that it was both overwhelming and extremely isolating. And I got to a point 4 or 5 days ago where that started to settle in my mind, and I was going a little crazy, just being stuck. Even though I love reading and I'm spending a lot of extra time with my wife and meditating and taking walks, I was getting a little stir crazy. And, I started to think about all of this information that we're always subject to, realizing that the world is so much bigger than I am, and there's so much going on, and the world is so infinitely large and infinitely rich, and there's so many moving pieces that I'll never be able to contain them or process them or think through them. And so I've been trying to think a little bit less in terms of my normal rational brain, and I've just been trying to feel a little bit more. And that's really something that I haven't had or didn't have through most of my 20s specifically. I'd have these feelings in my body, inside myself, that often just made me uncomfortable, and so I'd run away from them in some way, or not pay attention to them, or just work harder, or just stay busy and just ignore them, or in some cases eat too much food and numb myself in other ways in order to deal with those emotions. But in this moment, I encourage you, and what I'm trying to do is to really feel and let myself feel, and give myself permission to feel a little crazy, feel a little afraid, to feel love intensely. And so there's something about this threat, at least for me, when I've been talking with friends on Zoom. It's just made me really grateful for the relationships and the people that I do have in my life now that I can't be next to them or close to them. Of course, we can see them on Skype or Zoom or some other platform, but I've tried to really just sit in my feelings, for a lack of a better phrase, and just let them flow through me in a lot of ways. And the same goes for money as well. I haven't personally, with my own investments, experienced this type of a decline, this type of a hit to my portfolio. It didn't feel good for the first couple of weeks, but I've gotten more comfortable, I think, with the uncertainty. I can feel my body and my mind and my being sort of adapting to this very new, chaotic state. And I'm happy for that, because now I'm not freaking out as much. But I also worry a bit, because I don't want this to be the new normal for my life or for anyone else's life. I was just hiking 2 days ago and with my dog, and there were some hikers that were coming up the trail, and we maintained social distance. I moved out of the way, and we were about 6 feet apart. But then this guy said, "Hey, how are you? How's your day?" And I was literally just struck by him saying hello. I almost felt threatened by a stranger, saying hello to me, even from 6 feet. that was a weird feeling, just thinking how isolating this could make us and how fearful this could make us even as we come out of the virus. And so this is a really unprecedented time. I feel grateful that I'm outside of the city. One of the takeaways from this episode I hope that you get is that there's so little that we can actually control in our life. And that used to really scare me. I used to freak out. I was a control freak. I made lists. I tried to control every single variable, do everything, especially when it came to my money, just perfectly. But I realized that perfect was the enemy of just good and good enough. And while it was really scary to come to terms and come to peace with the fact that I really don't control much in my own life, over time that's become more of a freeing feeling for me. It's become more of something that I'm more comfortable with, something that has made my life richer, simply because tomorrow is not guaranteed really for any of us. And you see, even with the coronavirus, it's wiping out. I just saw news the other day of a 34-year-old. I'm 35. A 34-year-old, completely healthy, flew to Orlando for a work trip and flew back home and was dead within about 10 days from coronavirus. And that's what makes this so scary, is it's impacting people in very different ways. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, and so that can be an incredibly paralyzing feeling. But for me, trying to feel as alive as I can be in this moment and really reflect on the fact that I personally don't believe there will be a forgetting of this. I think there will be life before coronavirus and life after coronavirus, and I think it's going to change the way that we work as a society. I think there's going to be even more work remote opportunities. I think it's made the FIRE movement and financial freedom even more important. I think there will be, and hope there will be, more intentionality around saving and spending of money and valuing of money and security and investing not just in stocks, bonds, and real estate, but in other forms of currency, like social currency, like the relationships that you have and the place that you live. And in my own life, just a month before this happened, I was looking at buying a property up in Maine and investing some of my resources in that and building somewhat of a self-sustaining farm that was contained enough to not be crazy and require tons of resources, but that could feed 10 to 20 people. The people out there, I was talking with one of my friends, and he lives on a big property in South Carolina and grows his own food and can go out and hunt wild turkeys and fish in the pond behind his house. And really, the supply chain chain challenges and some of the challenges of groceries having not enough food, he doesn't have to worry about, because he can literally live off of his land. And so I think that's a sliding scale where in my own life, moving towards living in a place or having a piece of property where I could self-sustain with my family in that way is becoming increasingly attractive to me. I think that those types of resources are going to be really valuable in the future. And hopefully the government and individuals coming out of this, we realize how immediate and how serious of a threat something like this is, and that we're not alone in this fight or in this life. And I think during this time, when amidst so much uncertainty, I do see more collaboration and banding together, and we're really all in this together. And I've said this many times before, that it doesn't matter if I've reached financial independence or you've reached financial independence. It's, does everyone have access to this high quality information as well as resources to simply survive? I was happy to see that at least our government, there's going to be some individual checks that are mailed out to Americans, but I hope is really just the first step in what is culturally and from a policy level a move towards more universal basic income in this country, so that people don't have to worry whether a crisis crisis hits or not, if they lose their job, they're going to be able to keep food on their table and a roof over their head. I think having enough money to survive is a basic human right and should be available to everyone, no matter where they live and where they come from. But we don't have to get deep into that beyond the idea that we are all in this together. And I think moving forward, I hope that spirit continues even beyond the coronavirus. And so wanted to talk a little bit now specifically about what you can do in your financial life during this time. So it's really the perfect time to evaluate your own relationship with money, whether you don't have a lot right now and you're struggling to make ends meet. Some of that is likely due to your circumstances and to circumstances which are beyond your control. And that goes back to the idea of what can we control and what can't we? What can we change and what can we not change? And for some people listening to this, that change, the cards are likely stacked or could be stacked against you in a lot of ways based on where you grew up and the types of resources that you've had access to. But it's important to think about those things that we can control. And this goes back to the simple fundamentals of personal finance, of now more important than ever to have an emergency fund and some cash saved. If you've been laid off and don't have that income coming in, that's going to be extremely hard to do. And if you've been laid off, I encourage you to think about the skills that you have and look for opportunities to develop new skills that don't require you, for example, to have to work in a specific geographic location, things that you can do online. I'm seeing a lot of interest in online proofreading, online writing, becoming a virtual assistant, becoming a virtual bookkeeper. There's increased interest and demand types of skill sets. So if you've been laid off, think about this as a time if you can build new skills. If you are still getting paid your paycheck by your company, now's the perfect time because you're likely inside and not spending a lot of money to start saving as much as you can. The reality is we don't know how long this is going to last. The estimates are all over the place, but I know that it's going to be a very tough rest of 2020. So if you do have that steady paycheck and you're getting paid and you're working from home, really save as much as you can of it. That's now more imperative than ever. And likely in this time, this financially stressful time, there's only so much that you can be doing. And so thinking about the other side of money, which is really the life piece, and thinking about the life that you're currently living and the life that you were living before this happened. During my own financial independence journey, so much of what I was craving, I didn't realize that I already had. And so much of the freedom that I wanted, I had so much earlier on. And this is really just a matter of perspective and just not being mindful of the things that I already had. And so I encourage you to take a moment to look around at your life and the people in your life. And I feel really grateful now that I get to spend extra time with my wife. We've had a really busy past year with the book coming out and me traveling and her traveling, that we really haven't had a lot of chance to spend good quality time together. And I'm very grateful that we can do that now. So look around at your family and your friends and your job, and amidst this craziness and uncertainty, just think about what you already have and how much you already have. I had this immensely overwhelming emotional reaction that I don't know where it came from, but a couple of weeks ago, when this crisis started happening, I just opened my fridge and I was getting some cream for my coffee, and I was just so overwhelmed just seeing that there was food in the fridge and that the fridge was full. And something that came to my mind was, I have everything that I need. I have a roof over my head. I have someone near me who loves me and friends who love me, and felt so overwhelmed and just grateful that there was food to eat and a roof over my head, which is so much more than some people have. And I think at a time like this, just going back and thinking about fundamentally, are you happy with the life that you've been living? And what are those two areas that maybe you think you should be doing better, or you think you should be doing better, but you're actually doing all right? because I often find that I feel this pressure to always get better and always improve and always do more, when in reality, I've already won the game. So many of us already have so much, and maybe we already have everything that we want or everything that we need in the first place. And that goes back to that. I have everything that I need. And so the market being down 35%, or this virus that's spreading around the country, just being able to wake up this morning and even record this podcast and know that people are out there listening and that we're all in this together. We're not alone. We often feel like the emotions that we feel that we're alone in this, but there's someone 2 streets over from where you're living right now that's feeling the exact same way that you're feeling. And that's the beautiful thing about this human experience, is that we're not alone. Give some extra love to the people around you. I'm sending love here no matter where you're listening to this, and my heart really goes out to all of you. I've been struggling with what's the best way to reach out and say hello, and this just felt like the most natural. I just wanted to share and chat with you on my own and just tell you what I'm thinking about, because even though this is such a scary time, I feel really grateful for everything that I do have, and everything that's yet to come. And so perhaps letting go of that story that you were telling yourself about your life, or those things that you feel like were holding you back, or all of that burnout that you've been experiencing, and sleep in if you can. Read that book that you've been putting off. Do what you can during this time to take care of yourself, and remember that life is so much more important than money, and time is so much more important than money, and that you're not alone, that we're all in this together, and that moving forward, I think it's going to be a different world, and there's going to be increasing uncertainty. I've talked about this before with climate change and overpopulation and limited resources and the wealth gap widening. It's we're entering into increasingly uncertain times, and this is a really immediate representation of this, whether it's a virus or global warming or recessions. There's so much more of this ahead of us. I hope that not just individually, but that we all collectively can learn from this and help each other. I just want to bring this to a close and let you know that I'm thinking about you, and no matter where you're at, my heart goes out to you. We're going to get through this. Money is so much more than a tool, that it's a form of energy, that you can choose what money means to you in your life, that of all the things that we can't control in our lives, like the climate and the economy and the viruses, the one thing we can control is, or one of the things is, our relationship with money, and whether we're saving it and using it to create more options and choices in our life and have a bigger impact. I still believe that money is freedom. That doesn't mean push everyone down and make as much money as you can at others' expense. It means building a relationship with money and using it to create options and space in your life so that you can feel more alive and you can live a richer life and help others live a richer life too. Because if you're listening to this, you're likely part of the population that has so much more than others have. And so I'm with you. I'm here. I wish you nothing but health and happiness and some peace during this time. We're going to get through this. This episode is brought to you by Simplify by Quicken, a new budgeting, investing, and overall personal finance dashboard that's changing the game. I've been super impressed with it as a comprehensive dashboard for your financial life. Try it for 30 days free at simplifymoney.com. That's SIMPLIFI money.com.